Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. You're listening to the Coffee and Catchup WrapUp podcast. I'm Linsay Rousseau. I've got a special treat for you this week. Scott Ragle and Cameron Mark Lewis were our guest hosts, and they got to sit down with Sarah Kliban, actor, director, producer, and founder of Diversity Casting. She's got some great information to share with you guys, and some information she didn't share at the meeting that is just for you guys who are tuning in listening to this here. Coffee and Catchup meets every Friday from 8:30 to 10 o'clock at Piano Fight, but this coming Friday, February 13th, we are meeting at the Alcove Theater, 414 Mason Street on the 5th floor. There will still be coffee and craft services. Coffee and Catchup is sponsored by Piano Fight. Piano Fight is a full-service bar and restaurant with a cabaret stage, 2 intimate theaters. They present new works by new artists, plays, sketch comedy, improv, bands. There's no drink minimums, no ticket fees, no bullshit. Check them out at pianofight.com. And our coffee is always brought to us by Bedfellows Roasting Company. You can also find them online at bedfellowsroasting.com. They ship their amazing coffee throughout the country. All right, I'm going to get out of your way and turn the podcast over to Scott and Cameron. Enjoy.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CNC podcast. This week, it's Scott Ragle and Cameron Mark Lewis who are leading the questions with our special guest, Sarah Kliban. So, Sarah just spoke with us, and we had an amazing session with over 40, maybe 50 people. Cameron, do you want to start off?
Yeah. First off, Sarah, thank you so much for coming out. I think it was a fantastic morning. You were very inspirational. I learned a lot of information, and I know a lot of actors did too. Initially, we started with an introduction exercise that you always like to do. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is for and the purpose of that?
I will. And first of all, hi, everybody. I'm sorry you didn't make it. I gave a lot of my best information, and you weren't here. What I did was have people introduce themselves. And what we kind of did was we got into a flow where people said their name. My name is such and such, and I am an actor. And one of the things that is so clear, almost 90% of the time, people say their names with a question mark. And I'm just talking bare bones punctuation. I'm asking you to say your name right now. Say your name, my name is, and say it with an exclamation point or a period, but not a question. Most of the people who said their names today weren't aware that they were using a question. I'm going to give you an example for those of you who are listening. I'm going to say it the wrong way. Well, there's no wrong way to say your own name. But if you think about it, if you who are the owner of your name say your name with a question, what does that say psychologically about you and your identity? So listen to this. My name is Sarah Kliban. Did you hear the question? I'm going to say it again. My name is Sarah Kliban. Now I'm going to say it differently. My name is Sarah Kliban. Do you hear the difference?
It has more power behind it. It just commands attention, it commands respect, and you are you. You know you are you, and no one can question that.
I mean, yes, your resume stands as part of your presentation, but a lot of the way people get interested in auditioning you or hiring you is by your presence and the way you speak about yourselves. And if you speak about yourselves with any kind of trepidation or lack of confidence, there's a message that's being sent energetically that you're not completely confident in that moment.
That is, yeah. I felt that exercise was super helpful
I'm glad.
For everybody. Some people got it right the first time, just going by how the exercise was done, but, some people kind of struggle with it a little bit. It took maybe 4 or 5 times to really get that in your mind that, okay, I say it very commanding,
Hopefully we'll have hundreds of you out there practicing your name over and over again.
Yeah,
that would be great.
We should be able to get it by the end of the year, hopefully. Scott, do you have a...
Yeah, first of all, I was just really impressed with how much passion and support you give the actors here, and I love the fact that you do attend the Theater Bay Area general auditions, which you mentioned pretty prominently during the discussion.
Even when I was almost about to have my baby, I was attending every single day of the auditions.
And you intend to go this year, you said, in a few weeks. That's fantastic. Because we have so many people who have gone through theatrical training, there are people who don't have, film training background. You have a pretty big background in theatrical training. What kind of balance are you seeing in the actors? Do you see more theatrical training? Do you see more film-based training? Do you see that there's kind of an imbalance when it comes to actors training, or do you see kind of well-rounded training?
Scott, it's all there. More people are a little savvier about camera work than they used to be. One thing we didn't talk about today is how a stage actor should handle a film audition. And basically, you can always guarantee that less is more. That is the standard. Less is more. And we've just been auditioning for this Jobs movie, and Aaron Sorkin's the writer. And if you look at any of the work that Aaron Sorkin works on, it's all really low-key. And that's one of the biggest challenges for theater actors, is to not overdo it. And the way to not overdo it is going back to the prime concept that governs, for me, all acting and also any human interactions. And do you remember what that is?
Yes.
It starts with an R.
R.
Relationships.
Yes, you said it earlier, of course.
So what happens with stage actors that makes their auditions go kind of wonky is when they are more involved in the performance element and not as involved in the relationship that they can create with the reader or the camera if they don't get to use a reader. So as long as you keep relationship, meaning that you're tuned into another human being or the concept of another human being or the idea of another human being, the less you are in your head and in performance mode. And so that automatically helps those stage actors be more present, which means less is more. Because if you're really paying attention to another person and you're overdoing it, that person's going to tune out. And if you're paying attention, you'll notice they're tuning out and you'll adjust. But if you're not paying attention, then you're just going to keep kind of overdoing it and grandstanding. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
And we didn't cover that today, so only you listeners get to hear that.
Hey, you heard it here first. But that also ties in nicely to the exercise you were doing with the headshot moment when you held up a sheet of paper in front of your face, only revealing your eyes, but then you did kind of a cover of your eyes, and then we saw your eyes smiling. And I thought that was a really great example of what you need to see in an actor's headshot. So I was wondering if you could just talk about that.
Sure. And you, again, as listeners, get to have different information than what we had here, kind of more expanded information. What I call that is invitation, a sense of invitation. So you can look at a headshot and immediately see if the person in the headshot is inviting you to engage with them. And another way to look at it is do they look like they're interested in you, the person looking at them? Meaning that when the photographer was taking their picture, does the actor look like they were interested in the photographer or the camera, whoever they're putting inside the camera? And when you're getting your headshots taken, it doesn't hurt to bring a friend along to keep you grounded, because your closest friends are going to know if you're bullshitting or if you are present, if you're being yourself or if you're guarded. And so it's all about that sense of invitation. So the exercise was that I showed my eyes once where in my mind I was really thinking about my own self, my ego, how I looked. Then I would cover my eyes and drop the paper again. And then in that moment, I was more interested in the person I was looking at. And everybody noticed a difference. They kind of started sighing a relief or smiling.
You got a huge reaction. I mean, everybody just kind of was like, wow.
So it's your job as an actor when you're creating a headshot to extend your hand in invitation. Even if we're not seeing your hand, of course, I don't want to see a bunch of palms up like a Buddha, but it's that same kind of almost Buddhist principle. I am extending my hand out so that we can connect. And I'm inviting you in with my eyes. Not bedroom eyes, folks. Those shots always just become a source of laughing for the casting people and the director. Right? There's a fine line between bedroom eyes invitation and just invitation to humanity, humanitarian invitation.
You made a really good point about resumes, and that's something that I think is a huge question and concern for most of the actors out here in the Bay is how do I put my resume out there? What should I put in my resume as, effective content for people to see? And one of the things I think that might have surprised some people is that you said don't put any of your extra work in there. Can you explain the importance of that just briefly?
Well, most of the time what people do when they include extra work is that they include each job that they did as an extra, and we're calling them background players, folks. We got to really change that title to match up to what the union standard is, which is background player. But you're basically saying that you stood out and received direction from the director individually and created something. Now, obviously, your participation on the set was integral to the scene. However, if you're going to list background work, it really needs to be because you were a featured player and you got specific direction from the director, or there's a name for your character in the script. and your action is important and required for a specific trigger for the lead or a supporting player on the set. So that shows me that you can take specific direction from the director. But if you're just going on and writing down that you were an extra a background player and you were a pedestrian or something, I'd rather see a sentence that's just kind of an asterisk saying, have performed background work on, and name all the films. And the other thing I talked about, folks, is the kosherness or non-kosherness of going onto IMDb and entering background work on there. I don't think it's cool, folks. I really don't think it's cool. If you were an integral background player, meaning that you had an integral moment with one of the speaking parts, but you didn't have lines, but you triggered an action from them or a reaction, then I think it's valid. But it's a real drag when we go onto IMDb and every actor and their sister has put their names down as having worked on a film. I don't think it's legitimate. But you got to do what you got to do, but I just don't think that's cool.
Great point. Do you have any classes, workshops coming up, anything that people can connect with you at?
Well, I'm teaching narration for voiceover starting this Friday night and part of Saturday at Voice One. I have a workshop that I care a lot about coming up in June where I'm bringing a director named Tom Logan, who also wrote a book that I use in a lot of my classes called How to Act and Eat at the Same Time, the sequel. And I'm bringing him in for a 3-day workshop, and that's probably the best workshop I've ever attended in my entire life for any acting-related stuff. I do coach people, especially when they are going to be going for a big audition. I'm open to that. But I think there are some upcoming audition classes I'm teaching that are like a Sunday at Voice One. I learned a long time ago, if you're really busy teaching, then you're not busy acting, and I'm an actor. I'm an actor, period, not actor.
Are you questioning yourself?
Yeah,
right
exactly.
there,
No, I'm an actor. And I will be at the TBA Generals.
Very cool. Website, Facebook?
My website is called diversitycasting.com. My company has been called International Talent Casting for a long time, but it was really misleading. So I finally created a website called diversitycasting.com, but I am a new mom, and it's hard to kind of keep on track of that. But eventually I'm going to have a page that's going to have workshops and classes listed, as well as upcoming projects that I'm working on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me. It was a
amazing.
great crowd.
Yeah. And that concludes our podcast this week. Thanks for listening. Thank you to Piano Fight for the amazing space.
You're totally welcome.
That was Andy Strong.
Andy Strong with a period.
Andy Strong. That was Andy Strong.
Yeah, good.
Is that okay?
Good.
Got it.
Scott Ragle. I'm
Sarah
an actor.
Kliban. Oh, go say that again. Sorry.
I'm Scott Ragle. I'm an actor.
Try that again without a
Let
question.
me try that again. Hi, I'm Scott Ragle. I'm an actor.
Great. Thanks. I'm Sarah Kliban, and I'm a lot of different things.
Yes, you are. Thank you, Sarah Kliban. This is Coffee and Catchup. This is the Rockin' Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we will see you here at Piano Fight every Friday from 8:30 to 10 a.m.-ish. We are powered by Bedfellows Roasting Coffee, and we are hosted by Piano Fight. Check us out. We are at www.coffeeandcatchup.com. We're on the social media, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. All right, signing out. See you guys soon.